Welcome everyone to our YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us for another Murder in Retrograde mini-sode.
Woohoo!
Uh, we've got some updates, some historical true crime facts that I promise will be interesting. It won't be like history class.
I'm excited.
Um, and then our case this week, which is Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. So hello, Jenna, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm hanging in there.
What's up?
Well, so we're in California, as I'm sure most people know, and I feel like we are the new New York of the pandemic. I mean, it really is
Ground
scary.
zero.
So I think when you just are out in public, you feel it too. There's like a weird. It's back to
Mm-hmm.
it takes me back to the very beginning when we didn't know anything and everything was real crazy and weird. And I've gone back to like grocery shopping online and picking it up and just being a little bit more diligent. And it's scary. And I feel bad for anyone who's working in healthcare right now because it sounds like they're dealing with a lot. And I can't imagine what that does to your mental stability, like just having to see that day in and day out and possibly being, exposed and all those things. And it's scary.
Yeah, definitely. There's a tension in the air and I went to Target yesterday. I don't know if I told you this.
Mm-mm.
And the Christmas lights are wiped out and my husband wants them to put on the trees in the backyard because the kids love them. And so I went to like my third Target empty and I was like, oh man, but I thought, well, everyone's in their house,
Yeah.
everyone's decorating. And this couple came around the corner and they were in their 60s and they're like, you have got to be kidding me. They're like, it's 2 weeks before Christmas. And they just started ranting, and everybody around them, like myself included, we all got so stressed out. And I couldn't help it. I was like, it could
Yeah.
be worse. You could be laying face down in the ICU right now. And then
You
I
said
walked
that?
away. Yes. It was so cathartic to say it because they kind of just stopped. And I could tell everyone wanted to say something, but it's like, are you kidding
I know.
me?
Get your shit
Complain about
together.
Christmas lights? Like, you can be like, oh man, like I was, but
Yeah.
yeah, are you kidding me? This entitlement of you're gonna take my Christmas away? Like, put it in perspective, people.
Not even that. You're right. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. It's all gonna be gone. That's why, like, that's the whole. It happens
That's
every year. It's not any different. It's not any different than any other year, you idiots. Like,
spoken like a true earth sign. I didn't even think about that. That's what you would say. Like, why didn't you plan ahead? You knew this was coming. You had plenty of time at home.
I mean, seriously though, and like, go to Home Depot. They are stocked to the nines with freaking lights. I'm telling you, they've got
Are they?
ton. Oh my God, mine across the street, and I've been there because I've paint. I'm doing all kinds of stuff, but
Yeah.
they have tons of stuff.
Yeah.
Which
If there's
actually,
any
if you go,
Tauruses out there listening, watching, you're watching yourself. I've never met a Taurus that doesn't constantly have five odd jobs they're working on, and none of them are similar. Like my brother-in-law he built an overhang for their house, and then he built a chicken coop for their chickens, and
I need to
there's
hire
always
him.
something he's making. My sister's always redoing her house. You are constantly redoing things. It's definitely a
Oh,
Taurus.
so it's like Taurus meets like ADD. So yesterday I was gonna start painting my fence, and I'm like pulling my tarp out there to like get ready, and then all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I'm pulling out freaking plants out of my landscape.
Yes. That's
And
part of
like
being a
2 hours later, I was like, I didn't paint.
I swear I feel like that's mom ADD. Even
Yeah.
my sister who's on top of her kids like knows the schedule. She's like, I've lost it. Like I missed a scheduled meeting, and I've missed like play dates. Well, not play dates, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you're not as on top of it. She's like, I hope I get that back. I'm like, well, that makes me feel better that she's like that, because I'm like, what day is it? Every once in a while I will literally, not this month because of the holidays, I'll be like, what month is it?
No, there's
Does
been a
that
couple
happen
times
to
where
you?
I'm like, what day, where are we in time? Because it's just, I
Like
don't know.
bringing out my Christmas and Hanukkah decorations. I was like, I just put these away, it feels like.
It really
But
does. This last year's gone by. Although it's been a roller coaster ride, it feels like it has gone by fairly quickly.
it's gone by fast because there's so much shit happening every day. It's like a new catastrophe.
I know.
So anyway,
Tell me there's some good astrology coming our way. Tell me that there's a light at the end of this. No, nope, your face just
well,
scares me.
Well, light, okay, so I can explain the tension
Okay.
from what I have studied with astrologers and things like that. So, the Great Conjunction, a lot of people have heard of, is going to happen on December 21st, this month. The Jupiter and Saturn are going to be conjunct, which means they're going to be, even astronomers use the word conjunct, like right on top of each other. They're going to be less than a degree away from each other. So
Wow.
when we look in the sky, we don't even know what it's going to look like, because the last time this happens every 20 years, and the last time that it happened was 2020, or sorry, 2000, the year 2000, but they conjoined or went conjunct right next to the sun. So there was
Oh, so
no
you can
way for
see
me
it.
to look at it.
Yeah.
And so now they are like right above the horizon. I've been looking every night because you can see Saturn and Jupiter. They're really bright and they're getting closer.
That's
So
amazing.
1221, they're going to come together, and astronomers don't even know what it's going to look like. They think either it's going to look like an elongated star or a double planet, like two
That's so
circles.
cool.
It's going to be very interesting, but there's all kinds of historical greatness that people have been waiting for. Like this conjunction this close, less than a degree, hasn't happened in since the year 1623. And then even better, it hasn't been this visible in the sky since the year 1226.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's why astronomers are freaking, or astrologers are freaking
Oh
out. And
yeah, because
also
it's like
Saturn,
an
yeah, Saturn
unknown.
and Jupiter are our largest planets. They are so much like generosity, altruism, just these very powerful planets coming together. And they're coming together in Gemini, I believe.
Yeah,
The
I
two
think
of,
you're right. I just heard that somewhere and I can't remember where it was, but I do remember hearing Gemini recently.
yeah.
I feel like that's
And
right.
then, so we've been in Capricorn for, gosh, I don't know how many years. I should look that up. I think it's a long, long time, our whole lifetime. And now we're going into the age of Aquarius.
So does
So
this like the conjunct what was the word? Conjoining how is it?
conjunct or
Conjunct.
conjunction.
So does this a sign of like because we've talked about this before, we're going into like I mean not to get too crazy, but we're going into like the fourth or fifth, what are we
Yes,
doing?
fifth dimension.
Fifth
Yeah.
dimension. So is that
Yeah.
all a part of that? Like this is all kind of
Yeah.
happening because this is where we're headed or
So apparently, when these planets align, this is also so 1221, 2020 is when the Mayan calendar ends. It's when the Gregorian calendar ends, and it's when all of these end. So people used to think it would be the end of the world, but astrologers are saying no, we are going to transcend. And they say that we're going to become two planets, and not literally two planets, but everybody who's prepared and ready to go on to this age of love and acceptance will, but there will be a lot of people suffering and a lot of people that can't do it.
Hmm.
So it's up to the people that have gotten there to help. And you can see this with Karens freaking out, men
I was just gonna say
flipping
it
out.
feels very right now with like kind of the different divide that's happening. It feels right on point actually.
Yeah, and if you go way off into the I don't want to say crazy, but the more extreme world, they believe that the planets are very similar to our chakras. And if you've been very tired for the last like 6 to 12 months, there's a
I was gonna
reason for
say
that.
years. I was like, yes, that sounds right.
Yeah. Just even my husband, who never takes naps, he had a period of napping every day. And I was like, what is wrong with him? So apparently, the beings that are ready to transcend are downloading the software to do this, to become a better person, to move into this new time period. Because what if you don't believe in any of this, fine. You have to admit that this new world starting in 2021 is nothing like even uh you know whatever 20, I can't think of what was 10 years before that. That's really sad.
10 years before 2020, 2010.
Yeah.
I was telling my mom about not
So
to
see
get
my brain.
I
So
was just
that's
thinking, yeah, and I was just say it seems the last time in history that I feel like I could only feel this much of a difference, and I'm not even saying divide necessarily, but like difference of groups of people, I feel like was like in the 70s of like peace,
Yeah.
love, and like that was seemed like a very strong period of time where there was the hippies and the free love peace people, and then there was like conservative, you know what I mean? That was the only time that I can think back to that seems like that was really such a
Yeah, and
divide.
even more
And now
so,
it's like so much more than that. It's crazy.
yeah, it's more so like the 60s because the
Yeah,
1950s, everyone had to be perfect.
right.
Everyone, like the beautiful Chevys and the stepmoms. I can't think of words. Stay-at-home moms in their dresses and all of that. And then the 60s, it was like, fuck that, I'm burning my bra, free
Yeah,
love. But you
true.
still had the people, like my dad always talks about his dad talking about those people with long hair and they've got to cut their hair, and that was like so bizarre to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are living in a new world. But if you want to believe that this astrology thing is happening, it's going to happen on 12/21, and that's also the winter solstice. And you can look up in the sky and find it. Just Google it. It's very easy to see. And we also had a lunar eclipse this morning. I don't know if you saw.
Oh,
It was at 8:14,
I
and
should have.
that was in Sagittarius.
Yes.
So you are Sag rising. You should feel a little bit of, no, you don't, because you're tired. Rebirth. Like, do you feel better? Like, do you have
It's
well,
actually
talk
funny.
to me.
We'll go on a sidebar later because I do feel like in ways we'll talk aside, but yes, I could see where that happens. And it's I
Yeah.
mean, so this is all happening now. It happened in the what do you say 12 something, and then what? It's not going to happen for another 40, 50. Like how much longer is this?
So it happens every 20 years, but
Every
it's
20 years.
not necessarily
Visible.
close,
Yeah.
and it's not even a degree. I'm wrong. It's 0.1 degree apart.
Wow.
So they're going to be so super close. And again, if you don't believe in astrology, look up NASA's site. There's been an insane amount of energy coming off the sun, solar flares, all throughout the atmosphere and the solar system right now. There's a lot of energy, and that could also be what's tiring us, what's frustrating us. And I just feel like those people that need help, that are lashing out, they look like children to me.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if maybe they are very young souls and they need to be helped. The way that it's going to look is interesting to me. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be like a double planet or a long star?
I
Because they're
mean,
so big.
I am so not like I don't think I've ever really looked at a star shape other than it being like brighter than the others, but I think it would probably just look like a big star. That's what I would imagine to be,
Yeah.
unless you're able to get like a what are they called? Like a
Telescope.
telescope. There it is. You can see it, right? If you have a telescope, we should do that actually and see if we can like see it and like
I
what
don't
that
have
looks
a
like.
telescope. I'll just go to nasa.com.
Yeah.
It's easier.
It's so funny you say NASA because when the first time you had mentioned NASA, I remember being like, wait, what? But then I
Yeah.
just now started realizing that when my CoStar app is refreshing, it says
Yeah.
something about NASA. And I
Loading
was like,
NASA.
oh, that's interesting.
Oh,
Anyway,
and to answer you, so this happens every 20 years. So the
okay.
next time that Saturn and Jupiter will be conjunct is March 15th, 2080, where we will be long gone.
2080. It's 2020.
2080.
20 years is 2040.
I guess maybe that's when they're going to be that close. You're right. Huh, I have to
Maybe
look
it's
that
only
up.
visible in 2080. Maybe it's going to be close to the sun again. So it'll be 2040, 60. So 80 is not even on there. And
I
I
knows my
count like
math. I'm so good at math.
you should see
Yeah.
me with like elementary school math. Like, I don't know. I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh, forget it. When Scarlett's doing, I'm like, nope, sorry, I can't help you. I don't even try.
Oh
I'm
my
just gonna
gosh.
mess her up.
No, I know. I tried with my first one and then now I'm like, can you help her? Because I don't know what this is all about.
Yeah. So, okay, so we will be alive for some of them, but 2080, I don't know. We better, considering how much we spend on wellness, healthy food, exercise. We better live to be 200.
I know. I hope so. But I think I drink too much wine.
That's good for you.
Well, I mean, now that I drink the freaking, okay, I should be a brand ambassador for this freaking company. I'm obsessed with Cameron Diaz's new wine. It is
Oh
the best thing
yeah.
on planet Earth. It's
What's
like
it called again?
called, I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Aveline or Aveline. I think it's Aveline. And it's so, I'm such a brat too with wine. And oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. So if you
Where do you
haven't
buy
tried
it?
Sprouts. But if you go to their website,
Oh.
it'll tell you like in your local area. I'm sure Whole Foods will carry it at some point. I would be shocked. And I put in a request with Trader Joe's to carry it.
Good. Good for you.
I'm all about
It
it. I
will.
think it's amazing because I don't know if yours does because I know every Trader Joe's is a little bit different. Mine does not have organic wine. It only has like the cheap Charles Shaw version of organic. But I'm like, nobody, I mean, that's fine when you're 20.
Yeah.
I am not that age anymore. But so I
They
think
don't have a great selection. They have
they
more at
don't.
Ralph's.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. And so I think if people who enjoy a glass of wine, like, no, I didn't never realize it until I listened to her interview about what's in it. But that's a whole other thing if you want to Google
Yeah.
it and go down that. But it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think now that I've bored everybody to tears with wine, I think you have
Something
something that you
else to
want to
bore them
talk.
with?
No, because you I just you're like, I gotta
Okay.
tell you about something, and it's when you start talking about barns, I was like, I'm confused of where
Okay.
you got all this. So tell me what rabbit hole you went down.
So if you live in the Midwest, if you've ever been to the Midwest, you know that there are red barns and there are white barns. And I just went back to visit where my dad grew up, and I asked him, I was like, why are some barns red and some are white? And he's like, I don't know. I think the older ones are white. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. But then I was looking at them and they did seem to be very decrepit, and almost all the white ones were abandoned and the red ones were still in working order. So, you know me, I can't just let it go. I have to go down a rabbit hole.
I just love that
And
that set you off. You're like, I wonder why, and
it's
then
weird. So the way that they made that red paint back in the day is they would mix linseed oil, which is flaxseed oil. I don't know
okay,
why they need to call it two different things. And then they would add this white paint mix, and and they put rust in. And
okay,
the rust is what would make it
make it
white.
red. Okay,
I'm sorry, red. So then they all of a sudden they started building the railroads. And to be specific, the National Road, which ran from Illinois all the way to the coast to Maryland.
okay.
And in the year 1900 to 1911, the murder rate in rural areas skyrocketed in that around that area. And they were trying to figure out, how did this happen? So they figured out that the railroad started coming in, and with it came Sears Roebuck, which was the first ever online catalog. So think Amazon Prime of then. So
Yeah.
these people that never really got things from other states, that just lived in a rural area, were now getting things from the railroad.
Okay.
And one of the things that they were able to get that was much cheaper was this white paint that they didn't have to add any of the rust or anything to, because they found out that fungus was growing with the rust. The rust was creating
Okay.
fungus. So they started using this white paint, and it was wonderful, didn't rust, but it was tons of lead. It was mostly lead. So everybody painted their barns white and lived in them and worked in them and
Oh
breathed in them.
shit.
And now we know scientifically, it takes 20 years for lead paint it literally makes people violent. That's the first thing it does, is makes you violent. And you can just inhale it. There's so many ways it can get into your system. And so the murder rate skyrocketed because there was lead
Stop
in
it.
the barns. Isn't that crazy? So they went back and figured out that so it was in the 1880s when they started
Okay.
painting the barns white, and in 1900 to 1910, rural murder rate skyrockets. And then 20 years prior to that, it had happened in the city. And that's because the first place they used the lead paint was in the cities and in
The
the apartment
buildings.
buildings and in all of those buildings. So the murder rate matched. So that rural murder rate matched the urban one because they were both living in lead paint zones.
Oh
So
my God. That how weird that you were like, I wonder what the barns are red and white, and then you come down like a true crime hole. That is
well,
so
that's when I was like, oh, this is why I wanted to know how murder? Like, who would have thought that's
that
what
is
it came.
wild.
So then
Lead.
they
I
outlawed
don't
the
even
lead
think I
paint.
knew that it could make you violent. I mean, I always
Yeah,
knew it was
that's
bad for you, but I didn't realize. Wow.
oh yeah, that's one of the first things. Like it causes all kinds of things that's probably what you're thinking of because there's a ton of things. But the number one first thing it does when it gets into your system is it makes you very, very violent. People that would never be violent otherwise.
That's a whole other thing. It's like, but how? Like, where does it
Because
like
it's
how does it
poison.
affect you? Like, where? Oh my God, that's wild.
And then think about people that have it's a heavy metal. So people that
Yeah.
just ingest heavy metals or work with heavy metals getting violent, like
Oh
it's
my God. I
there's
got
so many things
chills.
that can contribute to things. You know, like it's hard for me when somebody just immediately says somebody's evil. They were always
There's
evil. It's
usually a reason or a
yeah.
cause or
It
yeah.
doesn't mean it's explaining the behavior because two people could grow up in
Dude,
the
I don't
same
know.
house
I
and
do feel
one of
like
them.
some people are born just wrong, but
Do you
that's a
really?
yeah, I do. When some of the shit we watch, I feel like especially when a crime is done by like for instance, I was telling you about the story earlier about and I don't know his history, so I could be totally wrong, but the first thing that comes to mind is a teenager, kills his entire family because he wanted to go to prom. But he wasn't like they're really
Yeah.
I mean, listen, they were back in the 80s. They did like spank their children, but it doesn't sound like there was I mean, I'm gonna get probably nailed for this, but it doesn't sound like there's abuse. But in the
Hmm.
day, spankings were not that wasn't the norm. I got spanked, like
Yeah.
that was the norm. And he was a teenager. Like so what
Yeah.
at where did that come from? There was not video games you can blame that shit on. There wasn't really anything going on. I mean, Mario Kart,
Brain chemistry.
yeah, I mean, maybe, but aren't you born with your brain like
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's evil because it's a gene. It's not your fault that somebody passed a gene on. Like paranoid
sure.
schizophrenia is genetic,
Okay.
narcissism,
Right.
bipolar, and people used to call that evil,
No, yeah, I
because
get what you're saying. But so
it's a slippery slope.
it is.
But anyway, that's my barn story. See, I told you it was interesting.
It is really interesting actually. I just love I just love how barn color and then down to violence is it's crazy.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So, shall we get to some updates?
Yeah. So we have actually quite a bit. I thought we'd only have a little bit, and I there is quite a bit. So I want to start with Forthood because I feel like that's been the most recent. And just to give some well, okay, let me just start. So this year alone, 25 soldiers in Fort Hood have died either due to suicide, homicide, or accidents. And last year there was 32, and then in 2018 there was 24. So every single year there's been I mean, to me that's a crazy amount of homicide, suicides. Like that's
Yes.
insane. And it does say and accidents, but I don't know if what they're qualifying as accidents, if whether it's a car. I mean, this was from the Associated Press, so I don't know, if that's a car accident or accident like someone was found and they couldn't figure it out what
I
happened.
think it's an accident, like because we live so close to Camp Pendleton.
Yeah,
When we hear of a
like a
helicopter went
bombing or
down when
something.
they were
Yeah,
doing when they're practicing. So I think
sure.
that's what it is,
So
which we
then,
always hear of, but maybe like 4 a year.
right. So total, and I know that it's a Fort Hood is the one of, if not the biggest military
Hmm.
base we have in the United States. So it could be relative to the population, but I don't think so. It sounds, and as we've seen this year with Vanessa, which we covered in season 1, I think, I don't know which episode it is. You have to go look, but So we covered that. And then since I think right when we were doing our episode, there was a bunch of deaths coming out that were very suspect. And because of all of this coming out, and I think because Vanessa Guillen's family made sure that it was in the news and being talked about, I really attribute a lot of this to her family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on December 8th, it was reported that 14 Fort Hood soldiers had been either fired or suspended over violence at the base. And there was ordered policy changes to address the quote chronic failures of leadership that contributed to the pattern of violence, including murder and sexual assault.
Exactly, because if they're on a military base, there's got to be security, and that must go all the way to the top if you
Oh
can get
yeah.
away with
Oh yeah.
murder and rape.
So I was really pleasantly surprised to read this. It was only a few days ago that they're announcing that. And at the same time, they released their independent, what is it, a review of
Hmm.
report that came out. It was 152 pages. But I did want to read some of the top findings that were on there.
Yeah.
And we will get our website updated this week. If you guys have looked, I sorry, it is a little bit behind, but it will be updated this week. And I will try and put this link on there because I'm not going to read 150 pages right now, but eventually I'll get through it. But I wanted to bring up the key like facts that were mentioned in it. So, oh, and to back up a little bit, the general, the chief of staff of the army, had told reporters that he spoke to Guillen's mother last week and told her, "We are, quote, holding leaders accountable and we will fix this," which I am impressed because up until now, it seems like,
Oh, they were
oh,
just ignoring them in the beginning.
yeah.
Totally.
So that I was glad to hear that.
I'm glad he said that. I hope he shows some
Yeah,
action.
no, agreed. And I think putting these officers, these people on suspension
Oh,
or firing them
absolutely. That almost never happens.
is a big first start. And really quick, an acronym that they mention in here is SHARP, which stands for Sexual Harassment Assault Response and Prevention Program. So when you hear that, that's what that is. So there was 10 top findings. Um, Finding number one, the implementation of the SHARP program at Fort Hood has been ineffective due to command climate that failed to
Yes.
instill SHARP program core values. So that is like, you guys failed. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds like they're holding people accountable. Okay. Anyways, finding two, there is strong evidence that incidents of sexual assault and sexual harassment at Fort Hood are significantly underreported.
Surprise, surprise. They're underreported to begin with. They've got to be almost non existent at that place
Yeah,
because you
because of
don't get help.
everything. No, and you get retaliation big time. I
Yeah.
mean, we've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Finding three, the Army SHARP program is structurally flawed. Because this is what
Duh.
we talked about. And I don't know if you remember, I believe it was in
Yes.
Vanessa that we talked about this. The wording of it was like, go talk to the person who assaulted you. It's like,
Yes.
what?
Talk to that person and then talk to your chain of command, which it could be that person that did it.
Yeah,
It's absurd that there's not
absurd.
an independent, psychologically trained faction of people to deal with
I
this.
agree. So I'm glad that that was in here too, because if they keep just saying, oh, it wasn't upheld, it's like, well, maybe it was
Yeah.
a shitty program.
Hmm.
I have obviously some opinions. Finding four, the Fort Hood CID office, which is CID, which is, I don't know off the top of my head what that is.
It's criminal investigation department.
Okay, thank you.
Crime investigation department, something like that.
Something like, okay. Had various inefficiency that adversely impacted accomplishments of its missions. So that
Mm-hmm.
probably is alluded to like the accidents part we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Finding five, the mechanics of the Army's at, education,
Education.
thank you, process involving sexual assault and sexual harassment degrade confidence in the SHARP program.
Yes.
Finding six, Fort Hood public relations and incident management have deficiencies.
Hell yes.
Finding seven, there were no established procedures for first line supervisors in quote failure to report situations that define appropriate actions in the critical first 24 hours.
What? They have no established procedures for when somebody goes missing in the military, on a military base. That is repulsive. How many parents would
Well,
not send their kid if they knew that?
so listen to this kind of segueing. So I forget the guy's name. Actually, I think I have it pulled up here. There was a sergeant who was sexually assaulted, and Fernandez is the last name. I don't know the first
Yeah.
name. And he went to seek help, and then they like dropped him off at a friend's house, and then he went missing, and nothing was done to find them. And the family is like, you guys should, and the first, like, you guys should have been doing something. And then they found him hanging from a freaking tree. It's like,
It's hard enough to ask for help just to have somebody not provide it.
it's
Oh, heart-wrenching.
horrible. It's horrible. Finding 8, the criminal environment within surrounding cities and counties is, I can't, I need breathers.
Commensurate
Thank
with
you.
or lower than similar sized areas. However, there are unaddressed crime problems on Fort Hood because the installation is in a fully reactive posture.
I don't know what that
Criminal
means.
environment surrounding cities and counties is commensurate with or lower than similar sized areas. So the crime is out of control and
Okay,
it's
is that what that's
unmatched.
saying? Yeah.
In other places, it's not as high.
Do you want to read the last one?
Sure. Finding 9. The command climate at Fort Hood has been permissive of sexual harassment and sexual assault.
So, listen, the positive, it's taken a year, but there's been obviously a report done,
Yeah.
and people are getting fired and people are getting suspended. And I really hope that the culture is on its way to changing, because
Yeah.
listen, like the sexual assault stuff, you can't, it's pretty much, I would say, nationwide in terms of like being within a service and being a woman, you're already probably hazed and dealt a different kind of set of circumstances. And then, having sexual assault is probably across the board out of control. And
Yeah.
people are, like you said, not reporting it. So this is not like just a Fort Hood issue, but it is just happening at like rapid speed.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
just hope that this starts, and I think it will. Listen, like we have a lot of strong women coming out and speaking up, and I think the climate of our society will be changing.
I hope so. I mean, Biden has picked like so many women in his cabinet, so many women to run things that have been run by men for forever. So hopefully that trickles down and we get some more equality and some more help because my goodness, these people are fighting for our freedom. These
Yeah,
women, they deserve every protection that we can provide.
I agree. I mean, listen, there's a lot of things to, like, I mean, not to go totally off but like, it's not, yes, that is a huge, and the issue that we're talking about here, but I think also the army, like military in general, like they don't really seem to do much for you once you're not there. It's like, bye, see
Hmm.
you later. And there's all of
Yeah.
these effects that you have after the fact with PTSD and all kinds of stuff, and you're not taken care of. And that
Mm-mm.
is despicable to me also, because like you just said, they're fighting for our country and
Yeah.
they deserve it. So I
Oh,
hope
there's
things get more modernized and updated, and we'll see.
absolutely.
So that's Fort Hood. It's a lot to
Okay.
digest.
It is.
Um, so the other thing with, and it's not a huge update, but just because I don't know that we actually talked about it too much originally, but with Lauren McCluskey. So again, a little backstory: she was in season 1, a young track star who was murdered by her boyfriend, and was let down by the University of Utah time and time again. But in October, it was announced that the university president, Ruth Watkins, and McCluskey's parents, Jill and Matt McCluskey, had reached a $13.5 million settlement. But in the state of Utah, any settlement involving state agencies that exceed $1 million has to be signed off on by legislator to be approved. So
Okay.
they will have to wait until I think the end of March to see this finalized. Um, I can't imagine that they wouldn't sign off on it, but it's
Yeah.
like with this family and what the cards they've been dealt, I'm almost like nervous for that to have to be.
Seriously,
another
because
step for them to
yeah,
go through.
everything has happened to this family. I mean, they've just been treated so horribly. So I understand that anxiety.
I
Let's
think
hope that
it should be all fine, but like I'm just like, oh,
yeah.
so then and you know the money's not, it's going into a foundation, all that stuff, so it's much deserved. And the thing about this that blew my mind when I was looking up to see if there was any updates with her is Miguel Darris. So
Mhm.
he was that officer who had the explicit photos of Lauren on his phone, showed them around, and Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill, he said that Darris's actions were reckless but did not violate any current Utah laws.
Oh
So
my God.
he won't be, there's nothing going to happen to him.
Okay, so there you go. That's a major flaw in law enforcement. We'll just continue on, and now he's been emboldened to do it more because he can get away with it. Come
I
on, law
find it hard to
enforcement.
believe that there's not a law that you could pull from being a police officer and
Yeah.
saying that you violated someone's privacy or something of that nature. I feel like they don't want, it almost sounds like they don't even want to try. They're just like,
No, it's a good old boys club. They don't want to. Ugh, that's disgusting.
it's horrible. It's horrible. What he did was
Yeah,
horrible. It's like I'm just getting more into pressing news here. It's
I
supposed to be
know.
updates, and it's just like
Well,
there's
they are
some good
updates.
updates and some are hard to swallow. This one's
Yeah.
like more on the positives. Well, not, but anyways. So Delphi, there's been no updates whatsoever. We've talked about many a times how this is just one of those cases that is horrible and sad, and we want it to be solved. But I thought it was just kind of nice and in their honor. So they've been so Abby's grandmother put out a statement last week, and she said, quote, "We want their friends and relatives and classmates to be able to have a place where they can come and remember them alive and happy and playing music and participating in sports, and all of that is right here," because they are currently building a playground in their
Oh,
honor. So I thought that was like sweet and wanted to mention it because although there's nothing going on in the case, I do think it's very sweet that their community is coming together and creating a space for them to be remembered in a positive light. Because I think, unfortunately, what they are probably seeing is people coming to go look at like the death site and
oh,
memorializing that. And I'm sure no one wants that. So I like that they're creating kind of a separate positive space for them.
yeah. And how nice for the girls' families to be able to go and see kids playing and hear laughter. And I would rather
Yeah.
see that.
Same, same. So, kind of in conjunction with that, there isn't any updates, but I just kind of wanted to mention that last week, December 5th, it marked the 8-year anniversary of the Evansdale murders, which is beyond frustrating. If you don't know about the case, I implore you to go listen to our episode. It was our second episode we ever did, or any information you want to look up. The Evansdale murders. It's very similar to Delphi. Two young girls. It's been 8 years, and it's maddening that there isn't more out there for them. So
Yeah, that's wild.
8 years. That's so long. And then
That's really long.
do you want to maybe talk about Breonna Taylor a little bit? Because
Yeah, yeah. There's been a lot of updates.
I don't know how much we actually talked about before. And so I just,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Okay, so at the end of October, it was announced that the grand jury would not be holding anyone responsible for her death, as we remember. The grand jury agreed that the shooting was justified.
Yeah, which
Uh,
is disgusting.
some members of the grand jury then spoke out anonymously to say that, quote, "was justice done? No. I feel that there was quite a bit more that could have been done or should have been presented to us to deliberate on." Grand juror one, a white male, told reporters on the call. So exactly that, like we said, Daniel Cameron kept so much out of it, didn't even try for manslaughter or any of those things. Like, didn't
Yeah.
even put it on the table.
So these are some quotes from the other jurors. Like some of them, so it says like, even though we asked for other charges to be brought, we were never told of any additional charges. We were just told that they didn't feel that they can make any charges stick. How do you not present all evidence and present all options? That is your flipping job. And that is what the point of a grand jury is. Like,
Exactly. And you're curating the evidence to get exactly
what you
the
want.
end result that you want. How is that okay? How is that justice? No
It gets
wonder people are protesting.
Oh yeah, and it gets worse. It says there was some more quotes from other jurors saying they didn't go into details of the self-defense statutes. They didn't go into the details of any of the 6 possible murder statutes.
Wow.
What was the other one? We were never given the opportunity to deliberate against any other charges. Just false all the way around. Oh, just false. I don't know what that last part was, but they're like you said, they just wanted a certain outcome, so they made it where that's the outcome they were going to get, because jurors are following the law, and they're like, well, this is the evidence being presented that I have to make a decision on, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's like I think what he's referring to is Daniel Cameron said that he presented all of the evidence
Oh yeah,
for
yeah,
all of the charges that could have been brought, and it's false. It's not true. He didn't bring any murder charges. He protected all of those cops.
yeah, and they
And it
just did it
being
because they were getting some heat from people protesting and
Mhm.
demanding something to happen, and they
Well,
just
Daniel Cameron wants to make a name for himself. He's an African American Republican, and the Republicans are all over that and want him to raise up in the ranks of the party, and uh, that will help him. I think a lot of people who are law and order will just think that that's great that he didn't put those cops away.
and then I didn't put it in front of me, but I'm gonna probably mess it up. But Tyler Perry, I guess, donated. Did you see this? He donated
Yes.
to her, and I'm forgetting his name. Brianna's boyfriend's defense. What was it? His defense.
Yeah. All of his
I'm gonna have
court
to,
proceedings and attorney fees and all of that stuff.
which is
Kenneth
fantastic because
something.
he
Kenneth.
shouldn't be. I don't even know what he's being. Is he being charged? Like that's what I don't understand.
They went back and forth. At first they weren't going to, and then they were considering it. So um I don't know. He might have also been helping people that were protesting,
So
getting their legal
this
bills
this is from the New York Times in June, but it says they had charged Kenneth Walker with attempted murder.
of
We're
the
gonna have to
cop.
maybe
Yeah.
dig into that a little bit more, but that is
Wow. Yeah,
put
let's look
me on
into
that
that.
jury. Put me on that jury.
Seriously.
Like live breaking news coming to live. So Walker, a licensed gun owner, was initially charged with attempted murder and assault following the March 13th incident, but those charges were dropped. Kentucky's Attorney General and the FBI are still investigating Taylor's shooting, and Walker said the suit would prevent officials from rearresting and charging him for any other crime related to the incident. So I think this is the money must have been for his lawsuit.
Yeah.
Either way, there needs to be some justice in this case because there has not
Yeah.
been.
And good for Tyler Perry.
Yeah,
That's a wonderful thing to do.
absolutely. I love seeing celebrities put their money in good places like that. Like
Mhm.
you have, I mean, not to go down of crazy, but like the whole Jeff Bezos situation where he's like a bajillionaire and won't even give his employees like time paid sick leave or something. It's like you are going straight to hell. Like put your money. I don't care. I don't care. He needs a
He's listening. He's
I
in your
don't
house right
care.
now.
I know, but I'm actually in a room where I don't have any of those things around, so he's not listening right now.
How are you not sketched out by that?
I'm
I
not
would
doing
not want
anything.
something listening.
What are they gonna do to I mean, what am I doing?
Talking about murder constantly.
Yeah, well,
Haven't you seen? I mean, like, that's what my sister says. I don't care if they follow me. I'm not doing anything. That's not the point. They can falsely say you did something. That's what you have to be worried about.
yeah. I mean, I'm really not doing anything though. You can dig
All
as
right,
deep
fine.
as
When
you
you go
want.
into jail because of your Alexa
Hey,
and what you said on
don't put that
Alexa.
out there.
Okay,
They're
it's not
not
gonna happen.
going to
It's
jail.
not gonna happen. I was just kidding.
It is always kind of fun to freak your husband out though, because they know what we watch, and he'll be like, I'll say something shitty about like planning a burying or something. He's like, "What?" I'm like, "What? What?" I'm
Yeah,
like, "Don't mess with me."
exactly. Definitely. All right, well, this
Oh
was
man.
fun update, history show, and
All kinds of
gossip.
updates coming your way. Yeah, lots of good stuff. So you
Yeah.
guys will have part 2 of Lori Vallows and Chad Daybell this week. Um it's a spider web. It is
Yes. But
bananas. I
we're
feel like
having
we should have
fun.
a flow chart for everyone to follow
Oh
as you
man.
listen.
Yeah, it's gonna be, you're gonna have to really focus on this one because there's a lot of different players and a lot of different crimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be a good one for sure. But thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to do this again.
Yay. So see you next time. Oh, I won't see you until
Bye.
2021,
Oh,
right?
see you next year. I
Bye.
think so.
Okay.